Hi, welcome everyone. Welcome to our session on hidden gems in your SAP Concur system and that shine for your end users. My name is Charissa Sage and I'm a Principal Client Success Manager. I spent the past 13 years helping teams simplify their T&E programs and help their end users focus more in their job, not their expense reports. I am joined here by my colleague Payal Desai. She's a principal consultant with around 2 decades of experience doing the same, helping T&E teams simplify their programs. We're very excited to also have with us two client speakers, Samantha Arledge and Mike LeBron. They bring in a lot of experience. They can share with us some of their quick wins and maybe some lessons learned. So today's session is around really answering this core question of how do we take some time off of your employees and work off of their plate and make sure that that experience is really good, but at the same time, making sure that the data that gets into the system is quality data. So that is where those hidden gems come in, and we are going to dive right into our agenda. So since we've aligned on the problem that we are solving today, we'll be diving into the hidden gems that we've grouped into 3 parts. It's pairings that streamline the expense report creation. It's pairings that speed up the approval and workflow process. And then lastly, pairings that support faster reimbursements and processing. After that, we'll shift into the fireside chat with Sam and Mike. And then we'll finally close out with just a few share outs and key resources. So, Payal, let's set the stage here. What do we actually mean when we say hidden gems?
Exactly, that's a good question. When we say hidden gems, we mean underutilized or overlooked features that can dramatically reduce employee time while improving compliance. What we will showcase today are strategic feature pairings that maximize efficiency, and that goes beyond the individual siloed solution implementations. So let's get started with the first one, travel reservations and travel allowance itinerary. Why capture data that your employee has already entered? When your employees travel, you already have valuable data. So the question is, how do you use it to save time? With travel reservations connected to expense reporting, you can automatically create travel allowance itineraries and even generate those expenses for your employees. In many cases, you don't even need to calculate anything. It's just review and submit. But if you do want the flexibility and somebody wants to adjust manually, you have the option of manually adding travel allowance, where it will auto-populate from your travel itinerary, but you can make edits. That by realizing that there are fewer calculation errors and more consistent data. What's next, Teresa?
Well, I've said it earlier. This is about reducing that time that employees take to create their expense report, because we've heard that pain point a lot, right? And so a lot of that pain point with manually creating expense reports also lead to exceptions. It leads to a lot of errors and mistakes. And so with that, this feature pairings that we have, Expense Assistant, Expensed, and real-time notifications really help cut down that time. So with Expensed, they take a snapshot of the receipts and it automatically creates fully coded line items. Then comes in Expense Assistant that groups those line items and credit card transactions into ready to submit expense reports. Half of the time, if you can imagine, the end users' reports are already half made before they open their laptop.
Yeah.
So isn't that great? And then the real-time notifications just keeps things going, because as soon as those credit card transactions hit, they're notified so that they can start putting in the expense receipts and start building their expense reports. So while it's still fresh in their memory to do so, because we hear a lot of like, oh, I lost my receipt, right?
Right.
So those these trio really help speed up that process, make sure that there's the right information attached to line items, and just kind of keeps things going. Now, another one that we see a lot of delays on is when your end users get stuck They don't really remember what they did training on by the time that they create their expense reports. So interactive help really gives that assistance while they're building their expense reports. So it's an in-app guidance that's available for you guys to activate. Now, if there are more complex situations that they come across, they can also utilize user support desk, which is that Concur team that specializes with end user issues, troubleshooting it so that things get moving and there's no bottleneck. Together, these tools provide them the help that they need when they need it. Now, there's also the expense type descriptions, thank you, and the quick tips. So with expense type descriptions, it really helps users immediately know what belongs where, so what expense types to use. Now, quick tips add short, timely reminders that like policy notes or receipt specifications that you have, so that the users select the right expense type and keep it going with building the expense reports. Together with the notifications and also the quick tips and the expense type descriptions, these tools makes Concur feel more intuitive rather than confusing. And it also helps create cleaner reports, fewer questions, and hopefully a much lighter load for your internal support team.
Thank you, Teresa. And with that covered like the first stage of what we call an expense report life cycle, the creation, right, where it all starts. Let's move on to the second stage of expense report creation, which is the approvals process. What tips do you have for us here?
All right, so let's start with the preventative side of routing. So on this slide, you can see how audit rules act as your first line of defense. They catch issues right at the point of entry, things like out of policy, missing receipt, and so that your employees can correct them while they're building the expense reports. Now, as your program evolves, we really recommend regular policy reviews because this just keeps those rules aligned with the business changes that's happening. And this reduces that noise, cuts through exceptions, and makes sure that you keep improving that first pass accuracy. Now, moving on to the automation side of things, this slide now shows how SAP Concur's audit solutions like Verify, Intelligent Audit, they take over the routine checks so that the system analyzes those spend patterns, receipts, policy context, and even internal benchmarks so that reports that actually need human attention are flagged. Now, those low-risk compliant reports, they just go through the system, while the high-risk exceptions are surfaced so that you can review it more. What you're seeing right now on the deck here, it's highlighting what unreasonable spend flags would look like. So we are able to kind of compare what's the submitted amount versus what are publicly available averages for that merchant or region. So when you combine these two, the audit automation, the stronger rules, the regular policy reviews, you get a faster, cleaner workflow where only the true exceptions are reviewed and the rest flows through.
Perfect. On that note, now that the report is submitted and it is approved, approvals are the biggest source of delays. We know that once it is in the manager's queue, either it happens or it could take days. So why not meet the managers where they are at, or the approvers, right, whichever approver. With SAP Concur's integration in Microsoft Teams, when a report is submitted, approvers can receive real-time notification in Teams. We are all on Teams all the time. And why not just approve when the alert pops up, right? It shows the key details of a report, like a total amount, employee paid versus company paid, line item summaries, and then your approvers can add comments, they can approve, or they can send the report back directly via the team interface. They do need to formally acknowledge the policy compliance before approving, but it is all right there where they are anyway functioning from. It's about removing friction from approvals so reports keep moving and employees get reimbursed faster. The other option is your approvers could be on the move and they are not sitting at their desk the entire time. In that case, mobile push notifications help. Your approvers are alerted the moment they have something to act on. It's a report waiting for approval, it was a report sent back, or a confirmation that a report has moved forward. They don't need to log in and check the system. From the mobile app, they can open the report directly, review the details, add comments, and again, approve or send back, all from their phone. This, once again, keeps them moving while approvers are traveling or between meetings or working remotely. There are no excuses now not to approve a report. So I hope that helps. Trisha, we have one more, I guess.
Yes. So once a report is in approval, it's also very important to have visibility, actionable visibility. So these two reports give you just that. The report entry exceptions report highlights issues as they create and submit expense reports. So you can spot exactly what are those errors or policy conflicts that are happening and that are causing that delay in the expense report creation. Then when you combine that with the workflow aging report, it provides you that visibility on where the reports are actually getting delayed, where your bottlenecks are. May it be a specific approver that's taking a little bit of time to approve, or an approval step, or maybe it's in your processing stage. But together, this report show you the what and the where of those bottlenecks, giving you the insight that you need to maybe course correct, do a little bit of training, whatever it is, so that you can keep those approvals moving.
Very good actionable insights from these reports here.
Correct.
There's a fun fact, though. This report shows 99 errors, the hard stops, which are not otherwise visible. So report into exceptions is your tool to get those hard stops that your employee are facing. Right? Let's move on to the last stage of a report process,
Yes.
which is processing and posting.
Correct. Yeah. So this is our last section here. And you are going to walk us through this feature pairings. And this is what those feature pairings are really what helps speed up reimbursement and improve the quality of the financial data. Because I think we were talking about this, Payal. If you have clean data, you have faster payments, you have happier employees, and therefore happier finance teams.
Thank you. So as much as we would like to believe or we communicate with your employees, people do personal card charges on company card. It just happens. Redirect funds gives you a clean and a controlled way to handle that without creating manual work for your team. From an employee perspective, it's straightforward. When they're creating an expense report, if it includes an out-of-pocket plus a credit card charge that's marked personal, they can net it off basically. So they simply go to the report totals page that you see on the screen, select the credit card on which they want to redirect their funds, and if they have more than one card, they can choose the correct one. They enter the amount they want redirected, and then boom, it just nets it off. After submission, it stays within your standard approval process. As an approver, you can clearly see the redirect funds, the request that is added. As a processor, you need lesser follow-up. It's lesser manual effort for you, and you can ensure that your card program is always financed accurately, correct? So with that, let's go into the next one, policy compliance and ERP. Charsha spoke about approvals, the various options during approvals, but it's not necessary that every report goes through every step of your approval workflow. You can make your approval workflow smarter by dynamically invoking or removing steps. If you have recurring expenses, let us say a monthly internet, that goes through every approval stage, that's not needed. Or maybe any report under a certain amount, you do not pass it through all your approval steps. You can reference your audit rules and then invoke skip steps so that your approvals move faster. Adding that with your SAP ICS integration or SAP financial integration, you do not need to wait for overnight processing for your reports to get posted. Based on the frequency that you select, you can have instant posting and payment confirmation. That helps getting feedback earlier if there is going to be a posting failure. It dramatically reduces time from a posting and a payment perspective, and it keeps the reports moving. Lastly, we haven't forgotten anybody who handles posting via standard accounting extracts. Practical problems is these little things that sometimes we overlook and then causes a downstream impact. So a pipe validation is used to separate the columns in an SAE, but it often happens that your users may enter a pipe validation, or it may come from a credit card on those common business purpose, vendor name, comment, report header fields. That would move columns and lead to wrong standard accounting extract being generated, and thus downstream issues. What we can do is you can set up field validations upfront so that when somebody enters a pipe validation, it alerts them right there and then so that they can correct. Additionally, if some of this data comes via credit card, the fields are non-editable. You really can't change it. Then there is a backup option on your standard accounting extract setup. You can choose the option. There are various options listed here. So either remove the pipe, or in one way, then more, one or more ways, ensure that the pipe validation gets read as a delimiter, as a text, and hence not acting as a delimiter. This extract cleanup and delimiter handling is a fail-safe. It protects your SAE output, and you do not have downstream impacts. You do not need to repost, right? So all of those are helpful from the last posting stage. What do we have next?
All right, we are going to transition to the exciting part of this section. We're transitioning to our fireside chat with Sam and Mike. So,
hello.
Welcome. So let's just start with some quick introductions here. Tell us a little bit about you, your name, your role. Sam.
All right. I'm Samantha Arledge. I work for V2X, and I have been with the company for 8 years. I'm a SAP Concur Integrations Analyst. And my fun fact, that dog on the screen, that's my Boykin Spaniel, Hank. He's the best.
I think from our conversation, he's Concur trained. He
Yeah.
joins your
He is.
meeting.
He joins every single meeting and everything.
What about you, Mike?
Mike LeBron. I work for RTX Corporation. I've been there for 13 years, 8 of which I've spent involved with Concur through implementation, and now through being an admin for the global system. And my fun fact is that this is actually, Louisiana is actually my 28th state that I visited. First time here.
Same, first time. And I think every fusion, we tried to do something different. So we'll see.
Well, welcome to Louisiana, guys.
Thank you. All right, so we'll dig right in. Okay, so let's start with some context here. Before any fixes or features, what did your programs look like?
Our program was very disjointed. We had 6 different Concur instances out there in the world, all managed separately. We had a couple different major homegrown systems as well. And then we also had many manual processes that we couldn't even see out there in the world. So for us as a large global corporation, it was really hard to get data in order to be able to make timely decisions.
So ours was definitely overconfigured from years of copy and paste configurations. So there were too many headers, too many fields that didn't apply to the most users, to many users actually. And so the users were unsure what to choose, what to use, what applied to them, if they should even use anything. So what we did is simplified the headers and the expense forms. We introduced conditional fields so users can only see what's relevant to them.
Yeah, very cool. Knowing the problem is half of the problem being solved. So with that as a baseline, what changes did you all make in your system to make report creation, submission, your overall process easier, basically?
So what we did is we had an audit rule that was for banking, and it was a hard stop. If the employee didn't have the audit rule or banking information, then they couldn't submit their expense report. So it reduced reimbursement issues and actually expense reports getting lost.
Yeah, and I bet they got that alert earlier
Oh,
rather than you
yeah.
finding out later on.
And then the conditional fields, there were clearer levels, less clutter, and easier navigation.
Yeah, for us, we were hearing a lot of noise from our users, especially our executive admins who do a lot of expense reports. They were having a lot of problems adding attendees to group meals or entertainment expenses, and we went and started using the Concur's group and count
Right.
attendee functionality. That would made it a lot easier for people just to add one group of certain type of employees or on travel or not on travel, and then just add a number of how many were there, right, at the event. So they didn't have to go in and manually add 100 or 200 different attendees. And it really helped streamline the process and reduce a lot of our tickets that we were receiving.
Awesome. There is this feature that came up, I think, sometime last year. You can add your employer attendees by adding their email addresses. So that's also something to consider. If you have an event and a large mail chain has been, just do reply to all, copy those emails, and if they have a profile in Concur, they get added.
Wow, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, when doing changes or introducing changes, we all know like training, rollout, adoption, that can be a little tricky. So how did you guys go about it?
Well, we used every avenue that we could find. So we had email bursts go out to email groups that we had set up, depending on what region we were rolling out Concur in. We had newsletters that we used from corporate that were sent by email. We also did office hours, so we had open Zoom sessions where people could come in and ask questions after they went live on Concur. We also had virtual training sessions as well, so people could join the training session and learn how to use the system. Basically anything we could do to get the word out that this was coming and or it was already here to help people have an easier time navigating through the tool.
So repetition, and all
Lots of
modes of communication,
Lots
basically.
of repetition and lots of, we didn't want to get people, we didn't want to leave people out of the process, right? And a lot of times you hear, well, I didn't hear about that, or I didn't know about
wasn't
that
aware.
meeting,
Oh, yeah.
and we were trying to not have that happen. There are some people that still couldn't
Right.
attend or didn't quite see things, but it was very, that level of was very reduced, right, with all of the things that we were doing. So
Yeah.
And it's a good feedback loop to get as you improve, like the whole Concur implementation is a process, right? You
Yeah.
get feedback and then you improve upon it. So
Right.
that's
Yeah.
really useful.
What about you, Sam? What's your experience with the training, rollout, adoption?
So we use WalkMe, WalkMe modules. Guidance for allocation and itemizations, which has reduced help desk tickets.
Awesome.
What I really like about WalkMe is anybody with any knowledge of Concur can become a pro because it tells you exactly, hey, click
Yes.
here, go there. And it's just users can complete the task without stopping to have to contact support. And it reduced the need for long training sessions.
Nice.
And how do you, what WalkMe do you have? Do you have the base or the premium since you have such customized?
So we have
Messaging.
both, but we also have 4 environments of Concur.
Wow.
But we're in the process of implementing to one, going to one. So, Mike, I will be contacting you.
got my number. So.
I do.
Yeah, Sam's very busy with all of that.
Yeah.
Has a lot of experience to
Experience,
share,
yes.
Yeah.
right? Okay. All right, so we talked about the training and, the rollout. Now, what are maybe some lessons that you've learned around, again, like balancing that, policy, but also the user experience? Because sometimes they're at opposite ends and you have to find the right middle.
So what we found is avoid over-configuring. If it's not part of the policy, don't make it mandatory. Too many warnings. If you a user becomes blind to the yellow exclamation marks. It's like, ugh, just another warning
Right.
on the screen.
It defeats the purpose
It-
if they become numb
Exactly.
to it, right?
And then we focus on the clear rules and a cleaner user experience.
Nice.
Yeah, when you're doing a global implementation with more than 45 countries, I mean, you can get really bogged down in the rules of all the different countries, right? If you really let yourself get bogged down. And one of our rules in the product team was to stay at the highest level possible of compliance. So stick with the corporate level travel policy and then work from there. And we really tried to stick with, if it was required by the local government, we would look at it and then we would make a decision on whether or not we wanted to implement that requirement. And that's kind of how we vetted out the different rules for our system. We're not going to just take we did listen to feedback, but if you listen to everybody that wants something in Concur,
Right.
you'll have a million requirements, and your system will be bogged down, and people will be frustrated. So just sticking to your guns really, and saying no to people, which is probably, the hardest thing we had to do
Right.
sometimes, right? But it was part of the process that we needed to do it.
Yeah. Unless they can validate it with a compliance requirement, there is no customization.
Right,
Yeah.
It's all
exactly.
global. Very cool. I'm sure that's a hard job, not an easy task to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Finally, what upcoming features are you most excited for?
So I'm really excited through the approval through Teams.
Okay.
That way our managers can approve on the go. We won't have to wait for long approval times. We're planning to test the Teams in our current implementation, so more on
More
that coming soon.
Yeah, let me know how that goes, because I also want to look into using Teams for approvals as well.
Yeah.
So we'll be contacting each other apparently.
Yes, we
Via
will.
Teams, maybe.
But yeah, I'm also in the process of looking at Joule
Okay.
for our system, to try and reduce our ticket numbers again, and really just give people more of a guided tour of how to use the tool.
Yeah.
So we're in the process of doing that, hopefully within the next couple of weeks.
Awesome, exciting. Lastly, how do you keep up with the learnings and the new features that keep coming up within Concur?
So how I
Yeah.
keep up with the learnings and is through like the different user forums, and I'm signed up for the emails.
Awesome.
Yeah, we have a weekly meeting with our support manager in Concur, and we go through all of the release notes every month
Nice.
to make sure that
Right.
we're updated with what the new features are going to be, whether or not they impact us. And then I am also signed up with the emails as well that come to us, and let us know what's coming down the road.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. Concur is constantly evolving. and
Yes.
the experience that you
is.
shared was, I'm sure, extremely helpful to everyone. So before we go ahead, we have, if you want to deep dive on any of these topics that we have here, we have listed the links in the presentation here. And if you can, before ending the session, take a moment to share your feedback. Thank you very much for your time today and sharing all these wonderful insights. Thank you for my co-speaker. Have a good day.